Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. We've got a lot to cover in today's video, but we're going to try to do it pretty quickly. So number one, obviously, we've got to talk about our new Lady Vols basketball coach. I think that she's a really good one. And we're going to be talking about our baseball team as well. We made some history there. And we'll be talking about David Sanders at the end because it sounds like we talked about in the previous video, it really sounds like Tennessee's in a really good position with him. But we've got some more news and notes in regards to David Sanders and his family's visit up on Rocky Top this past weekend. But before we get into it, do us a really big favor. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right, so let's start off with our new Lady Vols basketball coach, Kim Caldwell. She is a winner, okay, everywhere that she's been. She has an overall record of 217-31, which is good for 87%. Absolutely love that about her. And she's got a really fun style of basketball, but let's take a look at her coaching tenure and, what she's done. So number one, she did play at Glenville State and she coached at Ohio Valley. She coached at Sacramento State. She coached at Glenville State and she coached at Marshall last year. And that was her only season there. They did really well, obviously, because she was able to get the coaching job here at Tennessee. And down here, we can see that she's been a winner everywhere that she's been. Whether it's D2 or it's D1, you have to love the fact that she just knows how to win. And that means a lot. I don't really care what level it's on because you have to think about it from two different perspectives. Whenever you're at the lower classification, you're not going to have as many resources as you will once you move up to the higher classification. And I think that being at Marshall, she was really kind of, shorthanded because that's D1 and, Marshall versus a school like Tennessee, where she's going to have all the resources in the entire world. She's now got the best women's head coaching job in the entire country for our Volunteers. I think she's going to be very, very successful. But we're taking a look right here. You can, again, see a different view of how much she's won, just how dominant she's been as a head coach. So her style of play works, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But first, I want for y'all to take a look at all the coaches of the years she's won. I think that speaks volumes to the type of a coach that she actually is. All right, now Coach Kim Caldwell likes to play kind of a run and gun style of basketball. She likes to get three-pointers up early and often in that shot clock. And she also likes to play a pressure defense. Some people have been saying that she's like the Josh Heupel of women's basketball. And that makes a whole lot of sense. Whenever you look at, Danny White and the way that he's hiring, he likes to go out and get some of these, maybe young up-and-coming coaches, okay, that may be not as proven as far as their track record on the, big stages, but they are really good coaches, and he can see the upside. And Danny White is a basketball guy. So for him to go out and hand select Kim Caldwell out of all the other candidates that we know was out there, I think that that's big. And some people are speculating on, well, was this a move to try to save money? I think that could be part of it. But at the end of the day, I think that Danny White just wanted to go out and make the best hire to get our Lady Vols basketball team back to the prominence that we know and love. And I think that that's, why he chose Kim Caldwell. I just feel like she was the most qualified candidate from top to bottom. So I love her style of play. And I'm going to read off a couple of notes to y'all real quick. The offense, like we said, puts up a whole bunch of threes. Okay. So last season in 2023, her Marshall team shot 1,013 threes and they made 344 of them, which is good for number 3 in the entire country as far as threes put up or threes made. And Tennessee, just for reference, last year shot 659 three-pointers and we made 210 of them, which was good for 102nd in the entire country. So I think that right there, we can already tell there's going to be a contrast in the styles. We'll see what happens in that transfer portal. Do we want to retain the players that we have? Does she go to Marshall and try to bring some of those players up? Or are we going to be going out and looking for some players that can shoot that three ball at a really high clip? That's going to be the most interesting thing, I believe, just because once she gets in her players, which she can get in exactly who she wants here at Tennessee, I mean, that team should be very fun to watch. I'm thinking a little bit, not necessarily the exact same, but think about the Golden State Warriors back whenever they were just boom, boom, shooting up threes, putting up threes all the time. I think that it could be very similar to that just from how fun the games will be. So that's going to be big for our team. Now, on to the steals, okay, because her team does like to play defense, like to play a whole lot of press, full court press for most of the game. So we're going to have some really good athletes, and we're going to need bunches of them because players will get tired or obviously the conditioning, all that. Just the entire program is going to kind of change, on the women's basketball side. But they had 429 steals last season compared to Tennessee's 155. And turnovers, they had 522 turnovers versus Tennessee's 470. Now, obviously, whenever you play this type of fast-paced basketball, you're probably going to get more turnovers. And also, just because, I mean, not to knock on any of the players that she had at Marshall, but we know that there was going to be a big talent difference between what she had there versus what Tennessee's going to have. So that could kind of play a role and a factor in the turnovers as well. But I think that mostly it's just with that style of play, right? Like you're going to turn the ball over some, maybe more than average, but at the same time, you should be scoring more points. And speaking of the points, Marshall scored 2,765 points last year, which was good for 85.3 points per game. And that's number 4 in the entire country. Whereas Tennessee last season scored 2,354 points, which was good for 76.3 points per game. And it was good for number 25 in the entire country. On to scoring margin. Marshall was number 25 in scoring margin with 13.5. Okay, so that's the difference in, how they were winning games. And Tennessee was number 91 with a 6.6 scoring margin in 2023. All right, so definitely, big difference in the style of play, but I think that it's necessary. This is more of a forward-thinking move by Danny White. We're going out and getting a coaching candidate that is coaching more towards the new style of basketball. Now, this is not my favorite style of basketball, I'll just be honest with you, but it can be very effective. And we've kind of seen that with Nate Oates, right? With Alabama. That's a team that didn't play defense all season, but they're going to shoot those threes. And if they get hot, then they can make that, Final Four push. Now, it didn't really help them out versus UConn, but, I think that if they had a little bit more talent, they played a little bit tighter defense, then, they might still be playing. And obviously, we don't want to see that. But my whole point is just to kind of, compare these two programs and what we can be expecting, I believe, from our Lady Volunteers. But I also feel like, we've got to put a stronger emphasis on defense than maybe what we saw with her at Marshall. We'll see, right? Like, I don't want to try to dictate what she needs to do as a coach. She has not coached here just yet. That's just my preference, but I do feel like she's a winner. I think that she's a really good coach. She interviewed well, or she does really well in her, post-game press conferences, things like that. She speaks well, and I know that she's going to be a great coach. I mean, we've heard a lot of things so far from former players or people that's coached with her, and everyone's raving about her, and they're very excited for the opportunity that she's getting. I know that it's a lot for her right now, but obviously, we are going to support the heck out of her, and we wish her nothing but the best. So excited to see what she does in this transfer portal. That's going to be test number 1. And I believe that she will be speaking with the media today. By the time that y'all see this video, she probably will have already spoke. But I think that we will all come away from that press conference very, very impressed. All right, so on to baseball. We just won the series versus Auburn down at Auburn. I got to watch that first game that we lost 5-9, and once we won the second game, I said, okay, I'm going to have to probably stop watching as many of these ball games, because if we lose and then I don't watch and we win, I take that as a sign that, okay, maybe I just need to look at the box score and things like that and look at the highlights post game. But we did come out and perform well in the second game. Obviously, you don't like what we did in the first one. We started off hot, but we kind of started to slow down towards the middle of that game, especially with the pitching. We just kind of let them get on a good run. But again, you love to see us coming back in the second game, bouncing back and finishing strong. Now, in this second game, Blake Burke made history with his 41st home run, which now makes him the home run leader in Tennessee history. And he did it with 450 at-bats, which means that he's hitting a homer at 9% of his at-bats. That's very, very impressive. And a big, big congratulations to him. Obviously, with so much time left in the season, he's going to end up blowing that record out of the water. And there was another run rule in the third game. We won that one 19-5. And our next game will be against Alabama A&M. That's coming up tomorrow. But after that, okay, we're going to be hosting LSU in Knoxville. And obviously, that will be a really big series for us to win, with LSU coming off of a national title. Now, they are ranked number 18th right now, and Tennessee is ranked number 4. But again, you want to just come out and get that confidence kind of early on, especially with SEC play. So Tennessee's 26-6 on the season, 7-5 in SEC play. And I think that we're in a really good spot just because we're hitting so many home runs. We actually have 87 homers so far, and I think that we may end up being tied for first place, so we may be in second place nationally. So that's a pretty big deal. We hit 14 homers in this series alone. And we're also hitting a bunch of grand slams. I think we've got 9 on the season, which is, I believe, a Tennessee record, or it's tied for a record or something like that. So we're doing a great job, not just of hitting those homers, but doing it in those critical situations. That's what means the most to me, because you can kind of do it, throughout regular season play, but can you do it when it counts the most in those critical situations? That's what I believe can kind of help to separate a team that's made like this one, where there's a whole lot of offense and we're not seeing, the best pitching. Okay, I feel like in those last 2 games versus Auburn, the pitching was a lot better, but it's got to be more consistent, and that's what we're looking for. At least for me, that's what I'm looking for heading into the SEC tournament, and then on to the College World Series. But I love this team, man. I'm just very proud of all these players. You can tell that they're really humble, but they're really hungry. They're also dogs. And again, you just can't overemphasize the fact that they will come in and make those big plays in critical situations. All right, now let's take a look at this article on David Sanders' visit in Rocky Top over the weekend by Steve Wilfong over there, now at On3. And I want to focus on what David Sanders' mom had to say, okay? Number one, she says, "We had a great time in Knoxville. It was a quick turnaround, but overall, we enjoyed ourselves. David hasn't had an opportunity to see an actual practice, so it was important we saw the team in action prior to official visits." And it says, Josh Heupel, offensive line coach, Glenn Ellaby, and the staff made the Sanders family feel very comfortable. That's always good. Now, she goes on to say the coaching staff was happy to answer any additional questions we may have had. And after practice, there was a recruiting event at Coach Josh Heupel's home. All the coaches attended, and we had a nice time interacting with them and other prospects. We're looking forward to next weekend and attending the spring game. And now it goes on to talk about his visits that are coming up. And we can see that he's going to be going to South Carolina, which I'm not sure if they mean the University of South Carolina or if they're kind of referencing Clemson being in South Carolina with this one. But Clemson is May the 31st, Georgia's June the 7th, Tennessee's June the 14th, Alabama's June the 18th, and then Ohio State is June the 21st. I actually think that we got to keep a close eye out for Ohio State. But that is pretty much it for this article. Outside of the fact that it said right there at the end that David Sanders has been up on Rocky Top and visiting since he was in the 8th grade. So again, that's a phenomenal job by this staff identifying that talent early on. And I think that's why we're going to be in this thing down the home stretch. But Deborah made a really good point on, I think it was the video from yesterday, just talking about why is David Sanders' mom standing up out there? Like, why isn't she being made more comfortable? And I have to agree with that. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I would definitely suggest to the staff or to whoever, we need to invest in some golf carts, man. Like, we should be able to get 5 or 6 of them, I would say at least, and just be able to draw those things everywhere, because the mamas should not have to lift a finger. That's really who is going to be making these decisions about 90% of the time. But it does sound like Samantha Sanders really likes Tennessee, and she feels really comfortable. So, again, I think that we're in a great spot. Again, we've got to keep a close eye out on teams like Clemson and Ohio State down this stretch. I don't know if David Sanders gets through all of his visits, though. I honestly don't. I think that if Tennessee does a really good job in spring practice, or not in spring practice, but in the orange and white game next weekend, I think that we could be getting pretty close to him pulling that trigger. It just seems like the process is wearing on him. And it is a lot on these young high school players, especially if you are very highly touted. It's just an all-the-time deal. But I love where we're at. And, I think that article right there was a good little insight to just how well we are doing with the family members as a whole and making them feel comfortable for these blue chip players. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank y'all so much for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. And we'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.